What if every time your restaurant introduced a new dish, what if every time you introduced a new dish and it followed a streamlined recipe card development process that actually ensured not only perfect execution and cost control, but also elevated guest satisfaction, driving repeat business, and also boosting your restaurant's reputation for consistent quality. And also, it would contribute to the bottom line as far as profitability. Recipe cards are that tool. And a lot of times we don't look at them as a very, very powerful weapon, but they are super, super powerful. And I would like to throw out a quote to you from Thomas Keller, a great quote. A recipe has no soul. You, as the cook, must bring soul to the recipe. So if you want more money, focus on creating standard recipe cards. So today's whole topic is going to be all about recipe cards. How do we create recipe cards? What do I need for recipe cards? And how do I actually make a recipe kind of process map? Because I'm a big believer in frameworks and processes. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step formula for making sure that you have a process or roadmap on how to roll out really, really good recipe cards. So creative recipe card development, streamlining for consistency and quality. You know, the restaurant world is super fast paced, and the bedrock of everything we do is consistency and quality. Consistency and quality are the game changers. Everyone can have a hit dish every once in a while, but can you be consistent with you? Can you be consistent? Can you have quality every single time? Your guests expect the same flavors, the same textures, the same presentation every time they walk through your door. This is where creative recipe card development comes into play. It's more than just jotting down ingredients, right? And just the steps. It's about crafting a tool that actually becomes a blueprint for flawless execution by every single member of your team. So today we're going to dive into how you can streamline your recipe card development and achieve consistency and quality without compromising creativity. So why do recipe cards matter? Well, number one is that consistency is king. All right, hashtag write that shit down. Consistency is king. Every great restaurant, and this is from working with thousands of restaurants over 14 years. Every great restaurant is built on consistency. Whether you're running just a small local cafe, a multi-location franchise, your guests should experience the same dish every time they visit. A well-crafted recipe card ensures that no matter who's cooking, the dish turns out the same, the same as you intended. Perfectly seasoned, beautifully plated, and just the right temperatures. Right? Hot food, hot, cold food, cold. It's the number one thing we always talk about in the food service game. You've got to make sure. I love when I have really good, solid recipe cards. You should not know who's cooking. They should not know if the chef made it, the sous chef made it, a line cook made it. When the recipe cards are solid and the team is trained to follow the recipe cards verbatim, no guest should know who made the dish. They should all be the same, no matter who made it. So consistency is number one. Number two, it actually really helps us out as far as minimizing waste and controlling cost, which if you're bleeding out money, this is the number one thing you want to work on, because standardized recipe cards will help you control food costs by ensuring each portion is precisely measured and prepared. Your team needs to know exactly how much of each ingredient to use, how to minimize waste, and also it allows you to predict your inventory needs accurately. This will lead to better cost control, and that's a huge win if you want to make some money. Just by dialing in recipe cards and holding people accountable to what we call the 40 Thieves of food costs, which the number one thing is portion control. If you can dial in that element right there, it's a game changer. But that's where recipe cards come in. They don't know how much to portion if there's not a standardized spec for each ingredient on a dish. They have to know, is that 6 ounces, 7 ounces, 5 ounces, 4 ounces, 3, a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, teaspoons. This is where we have to make sure everything is accurate. No guessing. Guesstimation is the worst thing you can do. I always know when a restaurant owner is kind of doesn't really know what's going on when they say it's about. Like, what's your food cost? It's about. As soon as you say about, it means you don't know what you're doing. All right. How many ounces is that? Oh, I think it's around. Oh, no, you should be confident. It's 7 ounces. It's 6 ounces, right? It's 2 tablespoons. And then another thing recipe cards really help with, it makes training and onboarding so much easier. Especially, I mean, if you really want to scale or reduce turnover, which again will contribute to the bottom line and help you make more money, clear recipe cards are essential for training your kitchen team. I mean, you want to kind of think of a recipe card as almost like a mini training manual for your crew. So when I'm onboarding new kitchen team members, a detailed recipe card speeds up the learning because they have a process they can follow. It also reduces my margin of error and allows me to get them up to speed faster. Instead of me just kind of like making it up on the fly. Oh yeah, what goes in that Caesar dressing? Oh, let's just go grab some of this and grab some of that, and let's just kind of make the dressing. No, recipe cards help keep everyone on track, on focus, and on point. So when we're talking about recipe cards, there are some key components that we need to have an effective recipe card. Some people don't have all these elements, so you want to look at all your recipe cards and go back over them and make sure all your recipe cards have all these elements. Number one, they should have clear and detailed ingredients lists. Right? Your recipe cards must start with a comprehensive list that includes quantities and units of measure, not a pinch, not amount, not a deli cup. You want to be accurate measurements. Okay. I don't know how many times I've seen recipe cards that says a deli cup. Well, a lot of restaurants have different size deli cups. What size deli cup? Right. Precision is the key here. If you want to make money, you need to get precise with your recipe cards. No room for guesswork. If a recipe calls for 10 ounces of protein, write it down exactly like that. This ensures that everything is uniform across all the dishes. Every guest gets the same portion. Every guest gets the exact same quality. It also minimizes deviations. This is where the culinary team likes to go a little rogue and start making up their own shit and start, I just think it needed a little more of this or a little more of that or a little less of this, a little less of that. No, 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 no. Take thinking out of the game. You do not want your team thinking. You want to tell them exactly what you want, how you want it done. Eliminate the thinking, right? You got to tell them exactly how you want it done. Because when they deviate, it throws your cost off. So we talk about theoretical versus actual food cost. Well, theoretical, again, is perfect world. What does perfect world mean? Well, it means I don't make any mistakes, but we know human beings make mistakes. How can I dial this in? By dialing it in and having the exact specs on everything, I can tell if the team's portioning properly. Probably the 3 biggest food cost killers are portion, waste, and prep. And if you're in the food cost boot camp, you'll see we talk about the 40 thieves of food cost. There's 40 different thieves, but those are the big 3 killers. And I'll tell you, number 1 is portion control. That's why having a detailed list of ingredients is really, really helpful. Now, recipes can look a lot of different ways. You can use a standardized template, like the one on the left. The one on the left is the one we used at Wolfgang Puck. And that was all recipe cards were like the one on the left. That's how we did the standard recipes. It had the ingredients, had the quantity, and then had the method. Now, the one on the right is more like a kind of a classic, kind of handwritten or typed up one. Usually has the ingredients, has like any sauces, and then it has the preparations step by step by step by step. Okay. But you got to have one template. I would suggest that you all go to one standardized recipe template, not having multiple different recipe templates. Why? Because once the team gets used to one template, it's easier for them to be able to pick it up and run. Like the one on the left, all the Wolfgang Puck recipes were all the same. They all look like that. Other restaurants I've worked at, sometimes they look like the one on the right, right? But you got to have a standardized template. Okay, that's the number 1 thing. Number 2, you got to have those step-by-step instructions. Each recipe card should walk through the process from start to finish. Do not assume. If it's chopping, marinating, finish with a garnish, be very, very specific about what needs to happen in what order. Never, ever assume. Write it all down, right? Each instruction should include precise cooking times, temperatures, and techniques. Leave zero room for ambiguity. That means interpretation. Do not allow your team to interpret the recipe. You have to tell them exactly how you want it done, right? 3 is, if you can, you should have some kind of visual reference. I like recipe cards or plate specs that have some kind of diagrams or pictures. Now, you could have recipe cards, and then you could have plate specs too. Now, a plate spec is a beautiful, beautiful thing. What do I mean by a plate spec? A plate spec is a visual that helps you ensure that presentation is consistent across the board. If the dish has specific plating requirements, this makes sure your recipe card has detailed images so the team knows exactly what it looks like. Here's a great example of a plate spec, and this is included in the Food Cost Bootcamp. In the Food Cost Bootcamp, I'll give you all these templates. So this is what we call a plate spec. So basically it has like the name of the item, has the ingredients on there. It also has the step-by-step preparation method. And then it goes even one step further and has a picture of what the dish looks like when it's completed. The beautiful thing about these things is that means it should look like that. A visual reference means visual reference. So that's a beautiful thing, because that way the team can just look at it and say, oh, it should look like that. And that's exactly what we want them to do. We want them to look at this stuff and say, that's exactly how I want it to look like. Another thing each recipe card should have is exact prep and cook times. Clear prep and cooking times is essential, because they need to know. Do not assume they know how long to bake something for. You want 12 minutes, say 12 minutes. You want 10 minutes, not, bake it for around 30 minutes. No. Tell them exactly what you want it done, how you want it done. Because remember, some dishes do take longer to prep, and the team needs to be able to allot time and manage their time more effectively, because that also helps reduce ticket times when you have strict adherence in cooking and prep times. Another thing I like to do, especially in today's atmosphere and today's economy, is you should have some kind of allergy or allergen information. Okay, especially nowadays, there's so many people allergic to things. Having transparency about allergens or what's included in stuff is so critical, because you got to be able to tell the team, you got to train the team on what's in the dish so people know. I mean, there's some things that, like in sauces and marinades, like if someone has like an allergy to like garlic and it's in the marinade, you can't take it out of the marinade. It's already included in the recipe, in the bulk recipe. So you have to be able to tell these teams. And I'm going to show you a really cool template we use called a menu notes. Menu notes are a great way to make sure we get all these allergies out and onto a thing that we can use to train the team with. So allergy information is very, very critical in today's world, because a lot of people have allergies. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I mean, I don't think anybody in my grade school had a peanut allergy, but now everybody seems to have peanut allergies nowadays. It's crazy. So you want to make sure that you highlight all the allergies if possible, okay? Because making a mistake could put your guest's health at risk, and that could end up in a very, very costly lawsuit, and you do not want that, trust me. Number 6, you should have some kind of instructions for yield and also scaling instructions. Now, nowadays, a beautiful thing is that a lot of software will do this for you. I know there's recipe software out there like Master Cook and some other things like that that can easily take your recipe from, making one batch recipe to scaling it for, multiple portions. We used to do this a lot at Wolfgang Puck. We had a recipe costing program that, like, when we were doing catering, we'd have the batch recipe, but let's say we had to do it for like 500 people or 1,000 people. We could easily plug it into the software, and it would actually automatically update really fast and tell us exactly how much to make without us having to sit there and actually manually calculate it out. So having some kind of ability to scale instructions is critical, especially if you're doing any kind of catering, any kind of big batch recipes or things like that. Okay, because whether you're serving just 10 or 100, your team needs to know how to adjust the quantities without losing the integrity of the dish. That's where you want to have software that helps you. Human beings make mistakes. I like to make sure I eliminate the mistakes by having tools in place that the team can use to make sure they get the results we want, right? And then also, I like to have any kind of special notes or flavor adjustment stuff. You know, I don't want to stifle their creativity. Sometimes flavors need to be tweaked. Like a lot of times on a recipe card, we'll put salt to taste. We'll put TT, to taste, all right? It's very, very critical that your team understands flavor profiles and understands palate development. One of the biggest things I do with my young cooks when I was training, chefs in the kitchen is I really, really worked on palate development, understanding palate and where things occur at, where different parts of the tongue, where taste buds are, how we taste things, how salt, sweet, bitter, all these things, umami, how those things roll across the tongue are very, very important. So you want to work with your team about developing their palates. One of the best ways to do this is taste everything. Everyone in your kitchen should be tasting everything. One of the rules we had at Wolfgang Puck was nothing left the kitchen without a chef tasting it. Every sauce, every dish, we all had tasting spoons on the line. Everything was tasted before it went out to a table, because you want to make sure it was accurate. You want to get into a habit. You want to talk about having a great habit? Get your team into the habit of tasting everything. When I had my restaurants, there was a standard thing we did. Line checks were line checks where we checked the line to make sure everyone was stocked up. They had plenty of pars. And then what also we did was everyone had tasting spoons and they tasted as much as they could that they could taste without having it cooked. So everyone tasted sauces, everyone tasted marinades, everyone tasted everything on the line that they could, just to make sure the freshness and quality was what we wanted to be. Everyone checked their station, everyone tasted everything in their station, and then the chef went through and tasted everything on the whole line. Tasting builds palates, right? You want to train your palate. How do you train your palate? Taste, 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 taste. Invest in some cheap, really cheap tasting spoons. At Wolfgang Puck, everyone got a spoon. Everyone got a tasting spoon, and they're really nice. Like I think Grey Kuntz has these really nice plating spoons, and everyone got a spoon that was given to you from Wolf, and you kept that spoon. It was like your rite of passage, and you kept your spoon on you. It was really, really cool. And so having a tasting spoon and having your spoon on you all the time and tasting stuff, it was just almost as part of a critical part of your uniform as a chef at Wolfgang Puck, as having a thermometer and a Sharpie, right? You had 3 tools as a chef at Wolfgang Puck. You had your thermometer, you had a Sharpie, and you had your tasting spoon. And you never got on the line without all 3 elements, right? You always had to have those 3. Now, how can we help the team understand flavor profiles and allergies? Menu notes are the most powerful thing you can do. And what I mean by menu notes, I would always do detailed menu notes to my team. And I would give, just everything that I knew went into the dish. I would write down all the ingredients. Now I wouldn't put the portions amount, but I would put down every ingredient that went into all the sauces, all the dressings. Everything was on a menu notes. And then my team would get a packet like this. Every time we rolled out a new menu, they got menu notes. And menu notes were a great way for the team to learn the mechanics of the dishes, understand everything that went into the components. My service team got this, my culinary team got this, and we went over it line by line by line. We also gave them some recommendations for upselling. We gave them some allergy recommendations. We talked about ways we could sub out stuff if someone wanted to make something vegan or vegetarian. We talked about the options that people had. We talked about upselling opportunities. Tons of stuff goes into this. Hashtag write this down. How you train your team is how your team will perform. So if you want to get the most out of the experience for your guest, Train your team methodically about the menu, about all the items on the recipes. Okay. This will save you so much headache and heartache. It will put you leaps and bounds above everything else. And then every time you do some kind of menu training, there should always be some kind of quiz to hold them accountable. I remember my first restaurant, I told the team that there was going to be a menu notes. I gave them the menu notes just like this. And then I said, there's going to be a quiz. And if you don't have an 80%, you don't go on the floor. And they were kind of shocked when they took the quiz and a couple people didn't pass the quiz and they thought they were going to go on the floor. And I was like, you're not going on the floor. What do you mean? You didn't pass the menu test. You were serious? Yeah, I'm really serious. If you don't pass the menu test, you don't go on the floor. I'm not going to put you in front of my hard-earned guest with all the money and marketing I'm putting into efforts and getting people in the door. I'm not going to have you ruin it by not knowing the menu. Right? Menu knowledge gives your team confidence. When they have confidence, they can make recommendations flawlessly. And also, when you're confident, it just sounds, I mean, it comes across as to the guests as like, we know what we're doing. We got you. We're not going to mess it up. Okay. Remember, I went to a restaurant one time. And so when I travel on the road, I try to eat healthy. I try to eat a lot of salads. I was at a restaurant. This was a couple years ago. And I ordered a salad and I wanted a salmon. I wanted salmon on my salad. I like salmon. And I thought I asked the server a very, very good question. I asked, what kind of salmon is it? I thought she was going to say it's sockeye or it's Atlantic. This is what she says. I think it's mahi mahi. I'm like, I'll have the chicken. She had no idea what salmon was, right? Train your team, please. They should be able to answer any questions about the menu without having to lie, without having to bullshit, without having to like, I don't know. They should know. I mean, if you're going to put them on the floor in front of your guest, they should know. They should know the menu inside and out. They should know how to take a dish apart, how to make recommendations, how to upsell, how to downsell, how to cross sell. What are the allergies requirements for this thing? Oh no, you can't have that. It has garlic in there. Right? This is very, very critical. And in the accelerator program, we give you all the templates you need to make this work. Okay. This menu note template is like, I mean, it's a game changer. It took me years to develop this thing, and I'll give you the template I use, the exact template I use. All you got to do is just modify it for your restaurant and for your menu, and you'll be up and running with a really, really great menu note that you can use for your team right away. Right. So, streamlining the process for consistency. How do we streamline this process? Well, number one, you want to try to integrate digital solutions for recipe management. In today's tech-driven world, and everything's tech-driven, now we got AI in there too. Digital recipe cards are powerful because they can help you process stuff. A lot of people get recipe cards on like an iPad. They use like programs like MasterCook. There's all kinds of stuff out there. Like a lot of like food costing programs have recipe cards built into the recipe costing program that you can pull up. Some POS systems allow you to put the recipes in there too. You want to have some kind of digital foot track or footprint of all your stuff. Digital tools make it easy for your team to access, easy for you to store, also easy for you to update stuff. Because if it's online, all you got to do is just go online, change the recipe, and then it goes out across the cloud to all your different places, and everyone has the same recipe cards. Okay. It's really, really powerful. So much easier than having to pull all the recipe cards, have to retype them out, reprint them out, and then redistribute them. So much easier if everything's just on a software. You can make a really quick update, distribute to your entire team with a click of a button. This makes sure everyone's on the current version. Another thing I want to start doing when I'm looking at recipes, I want to start building a library of recipes. Now, as you start building and creating recipe cards, you're going to start creating a library of your recipe cards. And this is a really great thing because once I get a library of recipe cards, now I use these for features. I use those for promos. I use these for things that allow me to actually make some money without having to reinvent the wheel. These are living documents that just stay. Like in Wolfgang Puck, we probably have over 2,000 recipes in the database. And the beautiful thing about the database is that I could go in and I could easily pull a recipe that's already been costed out, already been tested, already verified that it's accurate and works. I can pull a recipe out and I can run it as a feature that day. This is super, super powerful. Okay. Items on your menu too, that let's say you're in the middle of revamping your menu or you're downsizing your menu, you're pulling some items off. A lot of people have really, really bloated menus. And what I mean by bloated menus, you have menus that are really way too big. And we want you to cut them down. A lot of times in a coaching session, big thing we do is we recommend cutting the menu down and make it a little more controllable, get your costs under control. Now, some of those items might be great items, but maybe right now we just don't want to run it. So we pull off the menu, retire it for a little bit, but we have a recipe card for it. Now we can run it as a feature. Beautiful thing about having that library of recipes is now I have a costed out recipe again. I can pull out whenever I need to and run it as a feature without having to, hey, what am I going to run for a feature tonight? And having to create up something on the top of my head, which for chefs is easy to do, but is it costed out? Am I going to make money if I run it? This is where costed recipe cards are the most critical thing you can do to make a profitable restaurant. Not just having recipe cards, having costed recipe cards. Okay. And I like to have all my database on my library. I like to have them classified. Like in Wolfgang Puck, we have them classified as appetizers, salads, sauces, entrees, pizzas, desserts, you name it. We got it classified in the category. It's so easy just to scroll through it like, hey, I need a new dessert. Scroll through the dessert database. Oh, that looks pretty good. I like that one. It's costed out. It's already been tested. Boom, we rock and roll. Right. And then every quarter or every 6 months minimum, you should regularly review and update your processes. No recipe should be set in stone. That means you got to regularly review the recipe cards and ensure that they're still accurate, especially when you're making menu changes or adjusting portion sizes due to food cost fluctuations. Everyone probably knows right now that food cost goes up and down like a freaking roller coaster lately. I mean, chicken. 2 weeks ago, chicken was decent. Now chicken's like crazy. Remember, like avocados go through the roof and they're like $100 a case, or limes go through the roof. You got to be able to adjust your portions and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with taking stuff off the menu. Sometimes you have to retire stuff on your menu if you can't make money at it. I had this conversation with someone just the other day in the accelerator program. They don't like not running out of stuff, or they don't like having not everything on their menu available all the time. So they said sometimes you just can't have everything available. Right? That's smart business. It's not saying that you don't know how to run the place. It's just like there's sometimes when prices go through the roof, I have to retire stuff for a little while until the price comes back down. Okay. This is where I have to be able to constantly review my processes, review my update procedures, and make sure I have a kind of a methodology in place to actually look at this stuff. And like I said, quarterly or every 6 months is the best way to do it, but it should be on your books. Right now, I would tell you what you want to do is make sure that you put on your calendar recipe review. Now, you can either do it every quarter or every 6 months, but put it on your calendar to make sure you do it. Another thing you want to do is get your team involved. I loved getting my team involved in my recipe development. Okay. One of the best things to do that really build teamwork is getting collaboration from the team. So when we did new menus at my restaurant, we would get a big, huge piece of butcher paper, put it out on the table, big, huge piece of butcher paper. Everyone would get crayons, everyone would get markers, and we just start writing out ideas. Like I would say, all right, these are the proteins I want to use. And then like we'd build like, buffalo or, fillets. And we start building off each node. Like, okay, what can we do on that? What would be a starch? What would be a sauce? What would be a vegetable? We start drawing out ideas and start really just brainstorming things. This really, really helps out. One of the things I also did at my second restaurant is I allowed my team to have what I call test kitchen time. test kitchen time was they actually could go into the kitchen, into the prep kitchen, and I would give them an hour a week. And, and depends on who they were. I would give them an hour to work on some recipes. And they had a process map they had to follow, but it was really, really solid. And I also gave them the kind of, they felt like they were being creative, they could contribute and stuff like that. Because I don't want to be the only one coming up with stuff. Now, I have guidelines when I'm doing recipe creation or processes. I always tell them that it has to be in alignment with the brand. I have to know what the cost is so I can know if I can menu it and make money at it or not. It doesn't do me any good if you come up with a crazy dish that's amazing, but if it's too expensive for me to make money at. Every item on your menu should make some money, right? Now, not all items make the same amount of money, but every item on your menu should make money, right? You do not want to put anything on the menu that loses money. That's how you go out of business really fast. You want to make money. Hashtag write this down. Profit is not a dirty word. I know a lot of people think that. It's not. Profit's not a dirty word. It's actually a really, really good word, right? I love profitability. Profitability, profitability, profitability. Profit's not a dirty word. So, recipe process. What would be a process map? So if I was going to give you a roadmap to create a recipe process map, this is exactly what would be it. This is a 10-step recipe process map. MAP stands for Massive Action Plan. This is exactly what you want to do with your team when they're doing recipes. You want to have a process in place, because if there's no process in place, then everyone kind of does, it's kind of a free-for-all. And when it's a free-for-all, you kind of get what you get, kind of all over the place. I get recipes that are kind of scribbled out, nothing's typed out, nothing's costed out, nothing's accurately weighed, nothing's tasted, tested. I don't know. All right. I like to have a process because a process ensures I get the same results. So 10-step recipe process map. Write these down. These are really, really critical. Number one, research and concept development. So the first part is to understand where we want to go. What's the culinary direction? I have restaurants, and I can give you guys this stuff. In the Accelerator program, we have what we call brand guidelines. Everybody have heard of a brand? I know Luke has heard of this. In marketing, we call it a brand kit or a marketing guideline. We talk about your fonts, your colors, your logos. That's called a branding kit. Well, you should have a culinary kit too. What do I mean by a culinary kit? A culinary kit should tell you what are your flavor profiles, what are the elements, what are like kind of maybe the cooking styles you use. Are you French based? Are you Southern? Are you more kind of Latino? What are you? Are you Asian based? What is your culinary direction? You should have culinary guidelines. And I can give you an example. I can give you in the Accelerator program, I'll give you what we call a culinary branding kit. This is easy for you to take and use with your team to create a culinary guideline. Everyone should have a culinary guideline. If you don't have a culinary guideline, you want to get a culinary guideline because it's really, really critical, right? So after I have that done, after I have my guideline, now I want to maybe I want to start doing some research. So I start looking, I like to look at like magazines. I like to see what's trending. I like to see what guests are preferring, maybe seasonal ingredients. A great book out there is the Flavor Bible. What's the other one too? Culinary Artistry is another great book. Andrew Dorenberg, Karen Page wrote a couple great books out there. The Flavor Bible and Culinary Artistry are two fantastic books that will give you a lot of inspiration, especially around the seasonal stuff. So I would look at like seasonal, like, hey, we're getting it ready into the fall. What is like some of the ingredients that people would like in the fall? The thing you got to remember is that people dress seasonally and people eat seasonally. All right. Next thing I want to do is I want to define who's my target audience, right? This goes back to your brand. Are we fine dining? Are we casual? Are we family style? What are we? And then also I want to explore ingredient sourcing and sustainability. Before I get too far into this game, I want to make sure I got resources and sourcing and vendors that can supply me with the material I need or the food I need. So I'm going to reach out. If I'm thinking about some ideas, I'm like, hey, I'm thinking about running a French pork chop, a 12-ounce French pork chop for the fall. Hey, what's your pricing on a 12-ounce, French bone-in pork chop? And I would reach out to my vendors and get some ideas. So I know right away if it's going to even be in the ballpark or not before I go too far down the rabbit hole. Okay. Also, I want us to think about maybe any kind of dietary restriction, especially if it depends on my brand. I have quite a few restaurants that are vegan. I have a lot of restaurants that do a lot of gluten-free options. A lot of these items that I'm creating, I might need to think about how can I make a vegetarian or vegan option available? How can I change this to be a gluten-free item? Okay, these are things you want to start thinking about. And then I want to collaborate with the team, especially with the culinary team, to brainstorm some ideas. Here I start sketching out ideas. All right, I start basically just rough drafting out some ideas. This is all just rough draft. After that, I'm going to take the ideas I really want to work on, and I'm going to start getting into recipe testing and initial development. So part 2 is we actually start creating a working version of the recipe card. This is where I draft out a full recipe card with the ingredients, steps, cooking techniques. I basically conduct a first round test, make sure the flavors are right, the textures, the appearance. And then when I'm doing this, I'm taking notes. Most powerful thing you need when you're doing recipe development, have a notebook, or even better, have a video camera. Because I don't know how many times I've been in the kitchen just playing around and I got a really great idea or a really great thing and I didn't document it. And then I'm like doing a Hail Mary trying to, oh shit, what did I put in there? And I'm trying to retrace my steps. It's easier if you do everything, document it. Think of yourself like a researcher. And when you're doing recipe development, you want to be very meticulous about, all right, I'm doing 2 tablespoons of this. All right, that was too much. All right, let's go to 1. Right. And then make adjustments. Right. Test alternative ingredients if needed. This is based on costing. Like maybe I'm looking at something like that might be a little too high price. What's something I could substitute that might be a little bit better for costing, or maybe even with my vendor if I can available. Okay. I draft out the recipe and I make any notes. After I draft out the recipe, next step is the most critical, and it's the one everyone skips. I gotta cost that sucker out. Okay, you got to ensure your recipe is profitable while maintaining quality. This is where 90% of all restaurants go sideways. They're good at writing out recipes, but no one costs out their recipes. Got to cost out every ingredient based on the portion size. Factor in your overhead, labor, waste management, all that stuff. I like to set my targeted food cost. If I'm trying to run like somewhere between 25 and 35, I'm going to have a rough estimate, but again, it's just a guideline. It's not set in stone. I'm going to adjust my portions and my recipe card to make sure I hit my cost goals without compromising the quality. Right. Finalize costed recipes. Get ready for team review. Now, first step, research. Second step, rough draft. Third step, cost out the recipe. And then we basically, after I have it costed out, now we're going to start getting the real feedback. So I'm going to actually do step 4 is I'm going to taste it. I'm going to get some team tasting. This is where I get the team together for feedback. And you want to have a diverse group, not one person. Because if I only have one person, that makes my kind of research kind of biased. Like if I'm just me and Luke in the kitchen, hey, Luke, try this. Luke thinks everything I make is amazing. Luke's going to say, that's amazing. That's the most amazing dish I ever had. Right? That's just one person's opinion. I need more than one person's opinion. So I want to get like a cross section of stuff. Okay. So get feedback from a wide variety. It's just like focus groups. I love it when people say, hey, I ran a focus group. How many people? 2. That's not a focus group. Focus group is not 2 people. Right? Always present the dish to the team, to the front of the house, and also for the leadership team for tasting. I like to have menu tasting notes. So I'll put the name of the dish. Let's say I'm doing meatloaf. I'll have meatloaf. I'll have the list of the ingredients on the dish. I'll have like just a list of what's in the recipes, and I'll have a menu tasting notes. And then everyone tastes the dish, they make notes. It's the most powerful thing you do is have menu tasting notes. I can give you a template on menu tasting notes. They're quite easy to do. Once you've done it once, you'll be able to do them over and over again. But you should always have menu tasting notes to get feedback, right? After we get the feedback, we tweak it, we adjust it, and then I finalize the recipe for the final run, right? After I get that kind of feedback, I've adjusted everything, I've tweaked it, I kind of pre-dialed in. Now I'm going to take that recipe, I'm going to run it as a feature. Nothing goes on the menu until it runs as a feature. It has to earn its spot on my menu. You got to think of it like recipes are like they're trying out for a starting position on a sports team. You might make the team, but if you want to be a starter, you got to really be a high performer. This is where I run it as a feature. And here's the thing I would tell you, run it as a feature, take it off for a while, and then run it as a feature again. Because if you run it just as a feature one time, it might just be a weird week and maybe it sold like crazy. And then you think, oh my God, that sold like crazy. And then you put it on the menu and it stops selling. Anybody ever done that? I've done that before. I've ran it as a feature. It was crazy. Everyone loved it. I put it on the menu and I didn't sell shit. It's crazy. It's because I didn't really blind test it enough. I ran it one time as a feature and I got a little bit of feedback and everyone loved it. And then so I decided just to jump in and throw it on the menu. You want to run it on and off the menu for like 3 times. I like 3 is like my favorite happiest spot. I'll run an item as a feature for like 1 week. I'll take it off the next week. I'll run it back the next week. I'll take it off. I'll run it back the following week. And then I just get a really good feedback about it. Okay. Always run it as a feature. Monitor reactions. Ask people questions, especially if you're going out talking to people, talking to tables. Hey, that's one of our new dishes we're running as a feature. We're testing it out. What do you think? What's your feedback on it? Right. I'm looking at the numbers. What's the sales performance? How did the team execute? What was the ticket time on it? Any feedback I can get from guests or kitchen staffs, really, really critical. I want to identify any issues I have with plating. How can I tweak the plating? How can I make it look better? How can I adjust the execution time? How can I make it a little more streamlined? Anything on there the guests wanted to see or didn't want to see, or too much or too little? This is also where I'm monitoring what comes back to the dish tank. Because what gets left on a plate is just as critical as what people eat. This is where you really start adjusting your food costs by seeing what do people not want. Okay. Final guest approval with adjustments after it runs as a feature. After that, I'm going to start setting up those plate specs. So now it's been running as a feature. Now I'm going to do those plate specs. And you saw a plate spec. That's where I'm going to have a detailed step-by-step ingredients, step-by-step procedures, and photos of what it looks like when it's done. So I'm going to have plate specs. I'm going to tell you what plate to use, what garnish to use, what are the guidelines for presentation. I'm going to give you all the photos, all the diagrams. I always put stuff by clock positions, like 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. I put everything down. I tell people exactly how I want it done. I include the portion size, the garnish techniques, like if it's a drizzle, a squeeze, a zigzag, whatever it is, any special instructions. Detailed plate instructions are the most powerful thing you can have with visual references. After I do that, now we're going to make sure we're solidifying everything. I'm going to have recipe documentation. I'm going to have a written recipe card or an online recipe card that's a visual that people can easily read easily. I'm going to have the precise ingredients again. You've already seen this a couple times today. Number of quantities, detailed cooking steps, prep time, cooking time, any special techniques, tools, costing details, portion sizes, any allergies, any dietary concerns, all written down. These are for all my people that are visual learners. Now, here's the most, I would say this is probably the most critical thing you can also do. Number 8, if you want to have an award-winning restaurant and get everyone on the same page all the time, video your recipes. right? You should have a video training library of how to do stuff. We used to do this all the time. And like I know like Meta has some really cool Ray-Ban glasses nowadays. In fact, I think I got some somewhere. I don't think I have them in here. But Meta has these glasses that have cameras in them. And you can actually record videos. So like I'm making a Caesar salad, and I would basically be looking down at the table, say, hey, today we're going to make the Caesar salad. So I'm going to take a stainless steel bowl. I'm going to add 1 ounce of dressing, 2 ounces of romaine lettuce. And I walk you through step by step how I'm making the Caesar salad. And I'm talking out loud, just like you didn't know anything about a Caesar salad. Video representation is the most powerful thing you can do because most people learn by watching video, and they watch video over and over again. YouTube gets crushed every single day. Billions of views on YouTube a day. People watching video. So you want to have a video library that you can use for training. This goes back to what we call our 70-20-10 methodology. And the 70-20-10 methodology is 10% is that online learning library. All right. Highlight anything that's really key. Include narratives. That means I'm talking out loud. Don't just have a video of you just doing stuff without saying anything. Don't be silent. When you're doing training videos, especially recipe videos or plating videos, it's not a silent movie. You have to talk a lot, okay? And then put them in a library where the team can access them. You can use Google Classroom. You can do it online. You can do a YouTube channel just for your team, but have that stuff done. And then, of course, training and rollout. Train your team on how to roll this stuff out. Conduct exhaustive team training on both the written recipe cards and the video stuff. Have your team practice until they cannot get it wrong. Remember, our number one guideline is we don't train them until they get it right. We train them until they can't get it wrong. We train them over and over and over until they just don't no other way but our way. Right? And get additional feedback. And then after I get the training out, then it gets put on the menu. Right? Added to the menu, it's costed out, it's put in the POS system. I get final review. Everything's running good. I integrate it into the POS system. I make sure all the modifiers are in there, all the things I need for it. I also want to market it too. Anytime I'm rolling out a new item, I want to market it and promote it. Luke will tell you this. You want to promo your new items. Okay. You want to draw some buzz around them. Hey, exciting new item, this and this. Put that through social media, in-house promotion, all your digital channels. Right. That is the step-by-step process to rolling out recipes. That's a recipe creation map, massive action plan. If you follow those steps, you will have a flawless recipe rollout. Final thoughts. Creative recipe cards. It's not just about, I'm telling you, it's not just about writing down things and just steps. It's a process to ensure consistency, quality, and efficiency across all your operations. You want to take the time to create detailed, standardized recipe cards, costed recipe cards. Because when you do that, you're investing in the long-term success of your restaurant. Guests will enjoy reliable, high-quality dining experiences because your kitchen runs smooth because everything's consistent. Start building and refining your recipe card system today. Every quarter or every 6 months, you should review your recipe cards. Right? That's going to elevate every aspect of your restaurant's performance. Okay. Before we leave today, let me explain to you a little difference between a webinar and what restaurant coaching is. Okay. So there's different types of restaurant coaching programs. And it's kind of like flying a plane at different altitudes. Each altitude offers varying degrees of detail, focus, and impact. So I would say the highest level is 40,000 feet. 40,000 feet view is like if you're reading a book, you listen to my podcast, you watch some YouTube videos, right? At this altitude, you're getting a good broad overview. And then there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I love books. I read 5 books a month. It's a great way to understand general concepts, great way to get some new theories, some ideas, but the information is mostly high level. I mean, you see the big picture, but you're not close enough to get the finer details. Next level after that is what we call the 30,000 foot view. That's webinars. That's why you're here today. You get a little bit closer to the ground, offering viable tactics. You're getting some strategies. You're getting some systems. You're getting some processes. You're getting some guidelines. You're still not all the way down where you really get a lot of details, but you're getting some good stuff that you actually can start working with. It's like getting a big chunk of clay and now you're starting to mold it a little bit. It's not really making itself out into a pot or a cup yet, but you're starting to mold it into something. Now, the 30,000 foot view is great if you have a lot of self-discipline and you have really, really great habits. I will tell you about most restaurants, though. 80% of restaurants have really bad habits, and a lot of restaurant owners do not have a lot of discipline, right? Now, that 10,000 foot view, this is what we call a mastermind group. Mastermind groups, now you're getting a little more serious. This is where you start seeing the terrain more clearly. You have a little bit more accountability. You start getting some group accountability. You get more tools. You can tackle a lot more complex problems. I mean, you're still above the fray, but you're a lot closer to actionable stuff. And then what we call the tarmac is when you put that plane on the ground, that's that one-on-one coaching. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you're on the ground, you're fully immersed. You have a coach that's really, really dialed into your unique challenges. You get the maximum accountability, plus you also get the full arsenal of tools. And you also get the tools, training, and coaching on how to use the tools properly for your restaurant. It's again, I can give you tons of tools, but how they apply to your restaurant is really, really different. This is where you see the most tangible results and also the fastest kind of impact right away is one-on-one coaching, right? And of course, one of the things you should do is some kind of immersion program where you get out of your restaurant for maybe 2, 3, 4 days, and you get kind of like just dialed in to just working on something about your restaurant. Like I love doing immersion events. I always say it's kind of like a high-speed jet. It's like you're not just flying like, a little puddle jumper. You're actually a high-speed, supersonic thing. This is where you get out of your restaurant, you get dialed in just for like 2, 3 days, immersive. It's a transformation experience. I love, like every month I go out to my mastermind group that I belong to. I belong to a business mastermind group out in California, Dana Point. And every month we go out for 3 days. I mean, it is the most powerful stuff I got because I'm out of my office. I don't have distractions. I'm just dialed in to learn, grow, and develop and make my business better. That's the most powerful thing you can do. And if you're looking for a coaching program, you want a coaching program that has all those elements. They should have some on-demand learning where there's some kind of learning portal or videos you can watch on your own. They should have some kind of group coaching calls. They should have some accountability or one-on-one coaching calls that you have a coach who knows you, knows your restaurant, knows what your challenges are. And you should have some kind of immersive training where they offer you to come out and train like away from your restaurant for a few days. That's why I call it an integrated coaching program. That's one of the things that the Accelerator program is so powerful about. It is an integrated coaching program. For the last 14 years, this thing has helped 2,900 restaurants. The biggest thing about coaching, it provides 2 elements that you need. You need accountability and you need new tools. Think of it like going to the gym. Now, Luke can go to the gym and he probably knows how to work out, but he'll get a lot better results if he has a personal trainer. Personal trainer tells him, hey, let's do this and this and that. Hey, your form's wrong. Hey, you're not doing it right. Hey, you can do one more. You need that person who can help you when you get stuck because everyone gets stuck. Having a coach is like having that personal trainer who knows who you are, what your restaurant's all about. They get to know your story, your style, your market. They know exactly what's going on with you. They know how you need to tackle things, and they also will push you. A coach is there to push you to do one more rep. Someone asked me one time, or someone asked one of my clients, like, hey, what's coaching like with Donald? And this guy said, what's coaching like with Donald? It's like running your restaurant on rocket fuel. So if you want the rocket fuel to fuel your restaurant and get from where you are to where you want to be in the fastest amount of time, the Accelerator program is the step-by-step formula. And inside our Accelerator program, you will get everything you need. You will get all the online. Remember, we talked about that integrated thing. You're going to get online training courses that you can access 24/7. You're going to get tons of templates, downloads. You're going to get access to one-on-one coaching. You're going to get group coaching with me. You're going to get one-on-one coaching with one of my certified restaurant coaches. You can get everything you need to go from where you are to where you want to be in the fastest amount of time. The Accelerator program has over 200 hours of downloads. I mean, there's a lot of material in there. Okay. And 200 hours of videos and 380 downloads. Now, I'm not going to hard sell you. If you want to jump on it, Luke put a link in the chat. Just talk to Luke or talk to someone on the restaurant growth team. Right. It's the fastest way to get from where you are to where you want to be. Trust me. It's worked with thousands of restaurants. And we almost like guarantee your results too, because most of you have some low-hanging fruit that you can pick up. Now, for those of you on the call today, talking about that immersion event in October, we are having my annual Restaurant Success Summit. Luke is actually speaking. He's going to do a really, really cool marketing playbook. He's going to give you the step-by-step secret guide that he always holds secret. And I got 9 other speakers coming to this event. It's 3 days. It's in Scottsdale, Arizona. 9 speakers, 18 workshops in 3 days. It's crazy. It's a fantastic event. Everyone loves it. It's great. Casey Anton, who wrote the book Profit First for Restaurants, is going to be speaking. All my certified restaurant coaches will be there. I'll be there. I got Zach Oates from Ovation is going to be speaking. Bo Bryant, the restaurant giant, he's going to be speaking. It's a great event. And right now, if you go to restaurantsuccesssummit.com, you can buy one, get a ticket for free. Right, this thing will sell out. We're actually halfway sold out already. So if you want to jump in, just go buy a ticket and send me an email, donald@therestaurantcoach.com, and I'll give you an extra ticket for free. All right, this is the best deal you can get. Normally tickets are $1,500 a month. Okay. Right now you can get 2 tickets, right? 2 tickets for $600 each. Right. So you buy one, I'm gonna give you a second one. That's 2 tickets, like $600. Normally they're $1,500 a piece. $1,200, you get 2 tickets for the price of one. That saves you $1,800. It's a great deal. No pressure. Anybody have any questions about recipe cards? No. Yes. No. Maybe so. You have any questions, Luke?
Very clear to me. Thank you. This is a good one as always. Guys, if you got any questions, toss them in the chat box below. Got just a few minutes for any questions
Yeah.
you guys have related to the recipe cards or anything else.
Anything, doesn't matter. You can ask me any questions. You know me, I love any questions. One of the things, so if you sign up for the Accelerator program, you get 3 group calls a week. You have a Tuesday Accelerator call, which I teach. Wednesday, we have the webinars like here. And then Thursday, I do have a Q&A call that you have access to where you can get on and ask me any questions every Thursday. It's probably I think the Q&A call is my favorite call to do. Okay. Someone said, where do you find the best practice to house recipe cards? A set for each station? Yeah, I like to have like either a digital recipe card file, and I usually just get a used tablet on like Amazon. I just get like a Kindle or a Fire tablet, and I usually store them on there. A lot of times I'll make the recipe cards and I'll put them in a digital format as far as like a PDF, and I can just store them into a program. All right. Now at Wolfgang Puck, the old school way we did it was that we had a recipe book, and you had to get a copy of the recipe. It was laminated. You had to bring out to your station. Then when you're done, you had to wipe it down and put it back in the book. That's old school way, but it works. You just, whatever system you have, you want to keep the same system. I like a digital format. A lot of our clients nowadays in the Accelerator program, they'll have like a digital format and they just put it on a tablet and keep it in the station. They can usually get like one of those otter boxes for it. So that way the tablet doesn't get beat up, and they usually mount it somewhere where everyone can go watch it, or they have it where you can take it to the things. Right? All right. Say, I'm good about costing recipe, but I not normally add the labor. How much do you figure in for a piece of the puzzle? So labor depends. It depends. And here's one of the reasons. Sometimes I put labor inside of it. Sometimes I don't, because not all labor is created equal. What do I mean by that? An A player is going to kick ass and knock out a recipe pretty fast, whereas a C player is going to take their time. If I try to put in labor in all my recipe cards, it's going to be hard because, again, not everyone preps the same speed. So when I'm talking about labor, I'm just thinking about how long does it take to make that? And I might put in a thing. There's a thing in recipe costing. We call it the Q factor. In the food cost boot camp, we talk about the Q factor. The Q factor is really, really important. Q factor is a small amount I add to every recipe, depending on my situation. So I have some restaurants that are full service that offer that maybe they give a house salad out to every meal. Like every time you order entree, you get a house salad included. Now, the house salad's included, but you have to account for it somewhere. So we put a small number into the recipe card called the Q factor, where I'm starting to put a small amount to offset that. Like a lot of restaurants, like Hispanic restaurants, offer like chips and salsa for free. A lot of people do bread service for free. This is what we call Q factor. A lot of restaurants are heavy on takeout and delivery. I might put in a small amount into my recipe cards for my packaging. Like my pizza places might put a small number in their Q factor for packaging because everything goes out in usually in a box, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, it's recipe labor is hard to calculate, but again, because not all labor is created equal. Right. What I like to look at is how long is it taking people to knock out the prep list? And then I'm gonna start looking at team dynamics and make sure I have the right people in the team. Okay. And the reason I look at labor sometimes is here's the thing. And when you come to the Restaurant Success Summit, Bo Bryant, he's he's a genius about this. He has a theory he teaches, and he'll teach at the summit. He always teaches every year, called knife versus whisk. Knife versus whisk is that there's so many great products nowadays that are manufactured that you would not know they were not made inside your restaurant. Like, I doubt there's very few people that can tell the difference between a diced tomato that comes in a box, comes in a bucket that's already diced tomatoes, like for garnish, compared to me taking tomatoes and having someone standing there for an hour taking a box of choppers and slicing and dicing tomatoes by hand or using a machine to dice tomatoes. This is where we start calculating labor. Is it more effective for me to buy it already processed, or is it better for me just to have my team chop it by hand? It's called knife versus whisk. It's a powerful theory. If you come to the summit, Corner Bo, the beautiful thing about our Restaurant Success Summit is that the speakers are there. I mean, like when you go to like the National Restaurant Show or like a lot of these big food expos, a speaker like me gets up on stage. I speak for 45 minutes. I stick around for like 5 minutes. I shake hands. I say hi. And then I have to go on to the next session. You don't really get a chance to talk to me or ask me questions. Where the summit, it's 3 days where you can actually corner us. You can actually, hey, I got some really specific questions about my restaurant. And it's really great. Every time we have lunch at the summit, all the speakers will go to separate tables, and you can just go find a speaker and have lunch with them and ask them specific questions. Okay. Cool. Cool. Any other questions? No other questions?
All righty. Well, Donald, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Everybody,
Luke.
thanks for
Appreciate you.
joining. Appreciate you being here. Guys,
Thanks,
this
everyone, for
recording will
being
be
here. Appreciate
available in your webinar portal after the call.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can find it there if you want to rewatch it.
Yeah, and in the webinar portal too, if you have any questions, I'm in the webinar portal too. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me and ask me. I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks for
Luke,
being
appreciate
here. Yep. Have a nice day.
All right, you too.
Bye.